Coming up on
Zuma
this
needed
week's
political
episode of the
leverage. This will
Mindscape
give him that to
podcast.
solve his problems. Clearly, the Moonshot Pact is an unabridged 150% supporter of Zionism and Palestine.
Yeah.
And as much as someone may say, listen, this is a foreign policy issue. I'm in the Western Cape. I want my verges clean. But in Guguletu, in Khayelitsha, all of them, they got nothing, right?
It's a rough situation.
We just have to look at the violence and the gangsterism in the Cape Flats. Nothing been done about it. You'd expect you'd have seen much more come out of Turkey. And yet Erdogan has been not only silent, but it appears been trading with Israel all of this time. And you have to ask, why would the Muslim party do this? Clearly there's some leverage somewhere. So this is not just about destroying Hamas as they want to tell us. This is about wiping out Palestinians. So it's therefore incumbent on us, on all of us, when the bombing stops, and God hopes the Egyptians open those borders properly, that we need to go and serve time.
Welcome to the Mindscape podcast. Politics, environment, history, mental health, business, religion, people, and philosophy. Escape to the real world.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of the Mindscape podcast with me, Shaheen. Shaheen, how you doing?
Alhamdulillah, yourself?
I'm good, man. Every time you say you're tired, this time you didn't say you're tired. I'm happy.
I'm all good. I'm
You're looking fresh.
Forward to tonight's podcast.
Yeah, I
It's
saw you
been
this morning in the
amazing.
gym, so you're
All pumped up and ready to go.
Alhamdulillah, yeah. So it's been a great journey so far. We're really enjoying the feedback that people are giving on all the podcasts. And the last time we done with the GIGS, man, that's blown up already.
It is. It's going to be an amazing... I don't think people actually heard the full podcast yet.
This is the problem we say, man. People just don't listen to the full thing. They watch the clips and they're like, okay, I saw your podcast.
But the clips are going viral, and that's the best part. And I think with the clips, it's actually helping Jess's cause because she's got a fight on the 27th.
Yeah.
So
All the best to her.
the best feedback so far was Jess's podcast.
Serious?
Yeah. The best.
Well, I got a shock. I posted it on YouTube.
Yeah.
And within 25 minutes, YouTube pops me a message. Like, I was just about to sleep. I think I put it up at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And I got a message saying, you've just reached 100 views. It's like your fastest growing episode. I'm like, what?
Wait, you know what's a blessing in that? The barakah of that?
Yeah.
Having a woman on.
Oh,
There's a lot of pun in those statements.
absolutely. So I'm so excited to have our guest today. Dr. Faisal Suliman is a Durbanite for sure. But we wanted him on for a while because there's issues that we want to talk with him about. He's got it all in his pockets and he needs to share it with us. So welcome, Dr. Faisal. He is the head of SAMNET, South African Muslim Network, but he's a medical doctor, GP, still working in KwaMashu in the townships. For how many years now?
About 25.
25 years?
Yeah.
Wow, man.
Same spot?
Yeah.
Wow.
Sure.
We had the looting, but
Yeah.
I'm still there.
Yeah, I remember once you had some dangerous situations in that place.
Yeah, we have.
But you're serving the community, man. So that's most important, right?
Trying.
Yeah. How do you feel, though? You ready for tonight?
I'm good. Yeah, like you say, we've been wanting to do this for a while. But eventually.
All right. Shaheen, you got a first question or should I roll?
You roll.
All right. So for me, one of the reasons bringing you on is this experience that you've got with regards to politics in South Africa. And now you've been on multiple radio stations. I know you're a big listener to SAFM and many of the others and criticizing media. And you've been in the media space. And that's what kind of the SAMNET does, being a network for Muslims, but specifically looking at issues in the community. So, I mean, let's first start off with a bit of your kind of assessment of current political issues now in South Africa leading to the elections here in South Africa. What is your take currently, especially coming to coalitions and the changes that we're going to potentially see?
Sure. How many hours do we have? Look, it's clearly a hell of an interesting time in our country, but also potentially a very volatile time. So if we look at the latest kid on the block, and that is President Zuma, right?
Shiniwam.
Shiniwam, yes, and being in KwaMashu for all these years, I have near the KwaMashu hostel, the IFB hostel, all of that. So you have President Zuma needed a political solution to his potential criminality problems, and he needed a vehicle through which clearly it wasn't coming through the ANC. So and this we've seen now over the past 20 years, finding a political solution to sort out criminal issues, right? And the more powerful you are, the more likely that you can wiggle your way around the courts. So clearly he's wanting to avoid the courts for the past 10, 15 years has worked. There isn't a thing he doesn't appeal, right? I mean, if he didn't like the color of the pen of the prosecutor, he's going to say,
Constitutional Court.
Dali
I'm
Mpofu is
calling
going to
you.
take another 10 days to argue in the High Court. About
And
the
interesting,
pen.
Dali is the EFF guy, right?
Yeah. And you see, it's coalition of the willing and the self-serving at the time.
Oh, wow.
Right. So anyway, so you've had President Zuma saying, okay, I'm not winning through the ANC. How else can I? How else can I find the power to leverage a negotiation for me, my children, any other accusations? Remember, we haven't really had the arms deal. We haven't had all of that. All we've had was the you didn't appear at, you don't want to testify at Zondo.
Yeah.
You defied the court. Court said you have to testify, and that's what this was about. Then you've had, allegedly, but it seems to be clear, the funding and the people behind the MK party, look, they've been very coy about the source of funding, who are really the power brokers behind it. But it appears that people are suggesting that it is the people who are responsible for the looting,
Right.
as well as a lot of the taxi bosses. Now, I say that tongue-in-cheek because I'm in the middle of where all of this is.
Just be careful.
But, I will start wearing my Kevlar to work now. But so you had those people who have had no problem with the construction mafia, the taxi industry, and having incited and benefited from the looting. You have a coalition of these two who need each other. They need a political vehicle to perhaps loot legally. Now, why go in with shotguns to guys putting up a building the way they've done with the construction mafia issues and inciting all of this? When you've seen, if you're in government and local election,
You got that.
you have the keys to the safe. You don't have to break the safe anymore.
Yeah.
So, and what do they need? They have 3-4 months to the election. They need a horse. And who better, notwithstanding what we may think of his politics and ethics and all of this, President Zuma is an extremely popular person in South Africa, in clearly some of the Eastern Cape and this province. The large province, the most volatile, and potentially, the swing state. So coalesce the two. One is a horse without a jockey, the other is a jockey looking for a horse, and you're now ready for the July. And this is what we've seen. Suddenly there's funding. Mr. Malema couldn't utter 5 words in English, in proper English, right? Got expelled from the ANC, floundering a bit, goes to the UK. Comes back a couple of weeks later, great English, wanting to do some studies, losing weight, getting rid of all the idiosyncrasies of language.
Yeah.
But more importantly, comes out with an entire marketing plan, from the name, from the nomenclature, the overall,
style,
the image, the language, CIC, all of this.
The disruptions, so you're getting maximum airtime.
That don't happen with H in woodwork in matric. That is the work of some great PR company that someone in the UK decided we need a vehicle.
So you're saying UK, or is it just UK, or are you saying like Western powers? Or
one person in the UK can be representing a lot of foreign interests. So you've had suddenly ISIS. If you watch the initial clips of ISIS, suddenly, and like Shaheen, I'm a bit of a news junkie, so you watched all Al Jazeera's and everything else. Brand new think back, when you first saw them, they didn't have old Jeeps. They had beautiful, lovely, brand new 4x4s, clean, beautiful flanks, all of this, Land Cruisers.
Toyota made a killing.
Right?
Toyota,
Well,
literally.
Bad pun did what killing. But yeah, the point is, you look at the ISIS, the way Mr. Malema went to a country and came back speaking the Queen's English.
Yeah.
And MK, the rise of MK, the funding, I see it. The gazebos in the townships, the vans, the loud hailers, T-shirts all over the place. That takes organizational skill. More importantly, it takes money.
It's funny enough you talk about Malema in the UK, because I watched a video where he's at the Oxford University talking.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw that.
I saw that one, yeah.
It's pretty amazing what he says there to what he says in South Africa. It's literally oil and water. The Malema in the UK, I would support.
Was articulate.
Very articulate.
Yeah.
The Malema in South Africa is like, I don't know who he is.
It's selling.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
And populist rhetoric is what disenfranchised supporters of him. But I'm saying that when you look at exactly like the MK, that tells you that there's a third force operating here. Otherwise, it takes. Ask the other small parties. I mean, we can maybe talk about the Muslim parties. They are struggling. You can't get the timber for those boards. You need logistics. You need vehicles. You need door to door. So the fact that these people came up so quickly tells me that there's a third force funding it with organizational money, marketing skills, the appropriation of the MK name, the symbolism of the spear, and all of this.
Yeah.
That wasn't something that
Thought
came
of
up overnight.
overnight. Yeah.
So there's okay. Yeah.
Sorry, the MK party, is it anything without Zuma?
Not in terms of how they've shot up.
Because I read an article recently where I think he collapsed. I don't know if you guys
Yeah,
saw that.
yesterday I think it was.
Saying he's quite ill. So if there's no Zuma, does the MK party still hold significance?
Look, if he lasts till the election,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. After election, if he disappears, no problem. Because now they've got their foothold. They've got their 20-25% with which to leverage.
I see.
The ANC needs the votes. They need the negotiation. Zuma wins. He negotiates himself out of future court cases, his children, whatever. Keep what is accumulated wherever. Maybe gets part of it is more mess ups with the Gupta extradition intentionally, right? So those friends are taken care of. And the real you see, you hear only the greatest things out of MK, but listen to them. You're not getting real deep information. It's all superficial information at the top. It's like DA trying to tell you that they're not, anti-Palestinian. Really, the trappings of like a facade, a veneer of
Or they're not racist.
Yeah, or they're not racist. So that's what I've been trying as much as I can to listen to MK people speak. And they're just floating at the top. There's no deep sense of what they are. And I think, so that makes me think that it's the jockey and the horse that I'm speaking about. The two suited each other. And once they're in, instead of having the slow growth and the real grinding that MK would have had to do like any other party, with Zuma, it's just been a parabolic move. And once they get in there, then the wheels will turn themselves. They just needed Zuma to turn the wheels.
So do you think this is in coalition with the ANC, you think, or they're doing this as contradictory to the ANC, as in splitting the ANC further, or they're saying, hey, let's act like we're splitting, but then we're actually going to be in coalition together?
There may be a personal element there between Zuma wanting to get rid of CR because the others are more amenable to negotiating with him.
Yeah.
And I think that clearly must be in there somewhere. The other part, I think, is pure politics and business.
Power control.
They want to get into power and into the levers of the keys of the bank, the vault. Zuma needed political leverage. This will give him that to solve his problems. After that, I think it's going to come down to look. Those coalitions that the ANC and EFF have got going. Now they talk about the ANC-DA coalition.
Yeah.
This is politics, and this is real politics, and this is what I think will happen. Even with those two. The horse trading will be behind the scenes and there'll be some really big give and take.
Yeah.
But I don't think someone's going to stand up there on principle and say, oh, yes, on principle, we will not do this or do that.
Exactly.
No,
It's politics.
There are no parties like that.
Yeah, so I mean, the issue now is for a layman. Like we were just, you'll hear all our podcasts, we say, we still don't know who to vote for. And on a national scale. Maybe on a local scale, you can influence someone who's your local councillor and you'll choose a party. But on a national scale, I literally still do not know who to put down. Okay. And so what do we tell people the layman who's like us, especially younger guys? Shane and I are still young. I got a little bit gray here.
So I'll speak in my individual capacity.
Or what do we look for?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So, at SAMNet, we've been doing this for a long time now, right? But even when President Zuma, as he speak, and the ANC was the next best thing to slice, to bread, we did not come out and say, vote ANC.
Right.
For two reasons. As a network, it gave us the ability to be objective and also to be critical. And so no one was saying, oh, yes, you punted. Even, when others were feeding over Zuma and hosting him for this and that and collecting funds, we said, hold on. We will give guidance as an organization. One or two, we said outright, don't vote for, right? And I'll come to those now. The others, we said, there's no point in voting for them. right? And then the third one was we said, okay, here's 3 or 4 you should consider.
Yeah.
So at the moment, clearly the Moonshot Pact is an unabridged 150% supporter of Zionism and Palestine.
Yeah.
And as much as someone may say, listen, this is a foreign policy issue. I'm in the Western Cape. I want my verges clean. When the ANC ruled the Western Cape, we had problems. When the DA came in Rondebosch and Claremont and all the lovely suburbs, verges were clean, electricity worked, all of this worked. But in Guguletu, in Khayelitsha, all of them, they got nothing, right?
It's a rough situation.
We just have to look at the violence and the gangsterism in the Cape Flats. Nothing been done about it. And I don't think it's because there isn't a way of doing it.
Yeah.
So in our opinion, my personal opinion, I think that for Muslims, for someone who wants to have a semblance of dignity and really standing up for, like those students in the US at the moment, the Moonshot Pact is out.
When you say
Maybe
Moonshot
there's a
Pact,
Freudian slip there.
that's what you hear.
That's the Freudian slip.
For those who don't know, who are the coalition? What
Okay,
parties
so-
in the Moonshot Pact?
So basically, the DA is turning those little other ones into franchises of the DA. So DA, Freedom Front Plus, ACDP, Patriotic Alliance, Build One SA, Musi Maimani's new one, and we can chat about that. Rise Mzansi, I'm not
I don't think they're part of the
sure,
Moonshot,
right?
yeah, but I think the funding
Then you've got
is a
one or two
question.
other small Christian parties, I
Yeah.
think.
IFP?
Yeah.
IFP.
Can't forget IFP and Freedom Front Plus. Yeah, those two are the big ones. So the big ones in there are DA, IFP, Gayton McKenzie with his Patriotic Alliance, and of course the IFP.
So the vision behind that is, look, we know ANC is not going to win the 50% anymore. So that means it has to be a coalition.
Yes, and we won't oppose each other in strategically on certain ballots.
Right.
Right. The big one was give the DA unfettered access to the Western Cape.
Yeah.
Now,
But that's not happening.
Gayton McKenzie says he turned down the money and that he's not going to listen to them. I have a different view. I think he's doing it with a bit of subterfuge. I think behind the scenes he is going to do exactly that.
Yeah.
Get incorporated into the DA. 200 million is no peanuts to that Rob Hershoff has offered him. And secondly, I think.
But
this
why
is
tell
being-
the truth then?
Yeah, no, you see, he has
that's
to.
true.
Gayton is out there saying, I'm the colored representatives.
Yeah.
I represent the coloreds, and I think we've seen now small little parties in the Karoo and PE and Quebec or whatever, now saying, yes, we are forming part of Gayton's coalition. And I think he wants to consolidate the colored vote and maybe some other votes that go along with him, other Christians who believe in Zionists or the Christian Zionists, etc.
Evangelists. Yeah.
But I think it's a ruse that he will throw his lot in with the DA after the election.
So you think he'll hand it over
100%.
to the DA?
100%. Look, the Freedom Front Plus want to also, we're independent. The coalition, the boss on the coalition is the DA. The big dog is the DA, and the GA is just going to chew up those little small ones. They may just keep their names, but on all practical reality, I imagine when the fine print comes out, they're going to be subservient to the DA's policies. 2 billion is the war chest that the DA has. 2 billion. That is no small amount of money.
But this is what people would say. Okay, you're telling me if I'm going to vote for these smaller parties, they're going to give it to the DA. On the other side, if I vote for other smaller parties, they're going to give it to the ANC. Who do I'm still stuck now. That means whoever I'm voting for is either going DA or ANC.
So who are the big ones, right? The Moonshot Pact coalition, decent numbers between them. Okay, maybe 30, 35%, whatever. ANC, depending whose research you listen to, but most of it is DA-linked research. So between the worst that 30, 32 is what Franz Grenier has been talking about, right up to 45. R.W. Johnson did some research. But they're all Brentis Foundation, Oppenheimer funded, DA funded, Hershoff funded sort of thing, right? Now, what is the difference between... Okay, let's take the Muslim Party. Let's take the Al-Jamaa or AM4C or even Sun Party, although Sun, I think, is probably a little early in the race.
Yeah.
AM4C is now the old Mansour Ibrahim, who was with NFP. Now NFP liquidated, so he's now taken over Roy Bulla's, they've coalesced Roy Bulla and him or whatever. You could give it directly to the ANC, and it means nothing in the grand scheme of things. Palestine notwithstanding, right? If 7th of October didn't happen, we'd be having a different. Oh, of course, the other big one we fought on Moonshot Pact is Action SA, right? Big one there as well.
Yeah.
Right, we'd be thinking, Rise Mzansi, Action SA, whatever. So we can actually talk how politics have changed before 7 October and after 7 October.
In South Africa.
In South Africa, for Muslims and others,
Yeah.
Palestinian supporters, etc. Now, so if you give it to the ANC as is, it's 1 in 6 million votes would means nothing. However, if you give it to a smaller party and they manage to get AM4C or whatever, and they manage to get 3 or 4 seats, the leverage that they can get for those 3 or 4 seats out of the ANC doubles or triples the value of your vote. That's the one thing to think about.
That's what we spoke to with Imtiaz Said
Right?
said.
Yes.
We said, why did you sell your vote to the ANC? But he said, look at the power it gave me by giving those votes.
Yeah. Now, of course, Imtiaz probably made some mistakes along the way when they, eventually they even tried to get rid of the ANC with that motion of non-confidence.
Yeah.
But I think they were also new at this game. So in that respect, that is probably the only consideration to think about when you're giving it. Look, on their own, 2 or 3 seats mean nothing, right? Yes. Okay, maybe I should correct myself there. Mansour Ibrahim, as a one-man show for the NFP, was responsible. He chased up the fact that the Palestinians had to get, Israelis have no visas to get into South Africa, it's a free for all. But Palestinians had to get visas here until he chased it up and pursued with the Turco and everything else, and that has now been waived. He used this effectively, his 2 or 3 minutes that he was given the right to get proportional time in Parliament, but even his 2 or 3 minutes, if you look at some of the speech, were effectively used to raise pertinent issues. Instead of waffling, you learn to condense a lot of stuff in 2 or 3 minutes. So I wouldn't say it was been a complete waste. Al-Jamaa, perhaps if I have a criticism of them, maybe they focused too much on the Muslim marriage bill. They put all their eggs in one basket and maybe, and went all in with the ANC.
Yeah.
And I think they went in all in the ANC because they needed the ANC support to get the Muslim marriage bill passed.
Yeah.
Without the ANC, that bill was not even going to get through white paper stage. So I think because they needed to get the Muslim marriage bill passed, which you needed ANC and the institutional memory and the organization of the ANC to get this through, they probably threw their lot in a bit too much, uncritical of the ANC.
Yeah.
Perhaps they've learned. In return, you got the mayorship of Johannesburg, which they haven't shown brightly yet.
No, but that's lost no more.
Well, it's there for the time being. They're keeping the seat hot while the ANC and the EFF work out the slice of the cake between Gauteng, between Ekurhuleni and the Gauteng and the Johannesburg municipality.
Not Tshwane.
No, Tshwane is DA.
DA, yeah.
So they slicing the cake still between those two municipalities. The horse trading has been going on, and in between, it's given the Al-Jamaa as a little party they can put there and just keep the scene warm, so to speak. They did offer them an opportunity to do great things. In theory, yes. In reality, no, because when you're holding the warm seat, no one takes you seriously. You can't get things done because people around you know this guy's just.
He can be used.
He's used, and no one has to listen to him because he's not in control. He's not the real mayor.
Yeah.
So, I think, but those would be potential reasons, and I think we need that. I must say, I've never been a great supporter of having Muslim parties per se, because I think we are South African and we needed our fingers in all the pies.
So you'll say the same for any religious. So here's a question. So would you say that for any religious? Would you say that for any race then? So you shouldn't have a party that's pure colored, pure Indian, a party that's pure Muslim or pure Christian?
I think I would have said that 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
What you see now is a very strong African nationalism taking part. You see clearly all over the world a right shift.
Yeah.
And I think minorities do need to start taking care of themselves in certain ways. Whether it's protection of your religion, your religious rights. And we can talk about, for example, 2 things that's going on at the moment as an example. So I think now, yes, as long as those parties are not working against the interests of South Africa, and I would, it's almost like both the Republicans and the Democrats will literally sacrifice America for Israel.
Yeah.
Not will, they are. They've been doing it for 100 years, 80 years now, 75 years, right? Their interest for Israel's interest. And to some extent, you can clearly see it with the Jewish Board of Deputies or the Friends of Israel Zionist Federation. It's open that Israel comes first. Even if they'll go, the DA is going to go to America to report South Africa, right? Little Johnny, when his court broke, ran to Ukraine. To do what?
For what?
We still need to know what in the world did he go in there? Was there some sensitive briefing he needed from Zelensky that couldn't be done on email, on the phone,
no sense.
or whatever? Right? That he needed to be told in person, hello, there's another agenda here that you need to be aware of. And you need to push your government, with Putin and all of the stuff to move away from BRICS and to move away from Russia. Right?
They're showing their colors.
Maybe he went to learn to become a stand-up comedian. Because
Zelensky. I mean, imagine,
the actor,
Ronald Reagan, Zelensky, stand-up comedian. The next day, an art Zionist becomes president. Ukraine was also one of the countries that sent their troops to Iraq. Remember, with the coalition of the willing, one of those that put boots on the ground in Iraq. So it didn't happen in isolation. Really, leader of the opposition in South Africa, a little party, runs to Ukraine to do what? That tells you there's something else happening. But anyway, so coming back now, I think there is a role for parties, whether probably religious more or less, because culturally it's not so big deal, and race clearly not, because it's a non-starter. That all parties, like AM4C, for example, it's Roy Bula's old party, Hindu, now coalesced with the Muslim, maybe bringing on all IFP or NFP people across. So maybe it will be a little bit of a potpourri in there. But as long as they, Islamic interests or Muslim interests, on principle, cannot be against the interests of the country. But we do have specific things that we need to be Muslim marriage bill. Now the whole transgender movement going on,
LGBTQ,
right?
Abortion,
right?
But that's the difficulty. Yeah.
So there are idiosyncrasies to every community that now that we're not this rainbow nation, now that it's becoming more nationalistic, tribalistic, see what's happening with MK, etc., that you now do need. There's nothing wrong in there's nothing wrong in supporting a broad-based party, but clearly there's also not anymore, well, I say to someone, you got your head in the sand, you still want to only vote for a Muslim party or a Christian party. I think the world is showing it, that there is a space for parties that are taking more of a greater interest in some of their communities, in minority communities, idiosyncratic values or interests. Let's put interest. Let me use two simple examples. Not so long ago, the Department of Basic Education, Department of Health came up with a policy. In their state hospitals, no more scarves. Nurses, women, headscarves. No more headscarves. The army did it 2-3 years ago, right? And that case went
there was a
to
pushback,
court, right? And they changed their minds. Now they came up with that. And we engaged them, and it took months to get replies to the emails.
So it was a confirmed policy, or was it a draft?
No. That's the new policy.
Sure.
And
what is the basis of that policy?
Okay, so it took us months to get the answer.
Okay.
Right, I wrote half a dozen emails and phone calls and whatever. Finally, the answer came, and lo and behold, it was about color. We couldn't believe it. We were expecting something about safety, hygiene, and we had, research shown that there's no issue.
It doesn't match the uniform.
It is actually good. The headscarf, hair is not falling off in theater, all of this. And we thought, no, and they said, no, it's about color. So
was it truly about color?
Yes,
the color of the scarf.
Yeah, the color of the scarf. That it won't be in keeping. That's why we can laugh about it, because it's unreal. And that makes me wonder who was behind this agenda. The color of the scarf will not be in keeping with the color of the uniform. And we said, tell us the color. Our nurses got no problem with it.
Yeah.
I can assure you.
Yeah.
Tell us the color. The nurses will adopt.
You get aunties in Cape Town to sew it right now.
We actually know people.
I said, at the moment, nurses in private hospitals wear the scarf of the color of the hospital.
Yeah.
You working for Mr. Price, and that's the color of the uniform. That's what you
match
wear.
it. Yeah.
I said, no issue. And so they clearly, and then now that the politicians were all up politicking here, we met some of them, and we said to them, in fact, I personally said to the Minister of Justice, one, this is not going to stand up in court. This is ridiculous. Secondly, it's a mockery. And thirdly, you're going to lose Muslim votes. Scarf is a personal thing here for us. So I'm told now via that the Department of Health had said, no, it was the bargaining council who insisted on this. I don't believe it. Right? They needed a safe face.
Yeah.
I personally think it's a safe face excuse. So we're referring it back to the bargaining council for rethink.
Yeah.
I really don't believe that. Right? I know two policemen, one in Newlands, one in Stanger, with beards, sort of minds maybe like yours, Nazir, who are being harassed at the moment to shave their beards off. They're facing discipline committee.
Is that a normal policy?
Now, suddenly there's a policy, right? And it's again vague, implementation at your discretion thing. But where's the issue with a beard, whether you put it for fashion or other man cave or for religious purposes, a well-trimmed, neat beard, what's the issue? And it's just going around in circles. And the latest one is the Department of Education.
But these are all departments that are run by the ANC.
Yes. And that's exactly what right? You see, what I've learned is that there's sometimes a huge disconnection between what goes on at DG levels and you've worked a little bit for the municipality for a while.
Yeah.
And the politicians at the
top. Oh, absolutely. I mean, huge. Actually, it's a huge gap.
If we, I listen to these court cases over the name MK and then the logo, and you'd think ANC, they couldn't take care of their own, unprepared, didn't file papers in time, didn't the logo, they appealed it on one thing and they didn't appeal it on the other appropriation of culture, but not of on a political.
Yeah.
And that must make you worried. Really?
It does.
There's such an important thing the ANC couldn't handle themselves, right? So that tells you that there's almost, they're working in silos. There's the big NEC and all of this and the politicking and our president who thinks he's giving orders and no follow-up of whether those orders get seen through or not. And this sort of thing.
Yeah, and decision-making can happen, at level below that for stuff like scarves and anything else.
And at DG level.
Yeah.
The lobbying takes place at the DG level. Half the time, the ministers don't even know what's going on. Yeah. They're busy shaking hands and cutting ribbons and looking important in their blue light brigade. But honestly, I think at the practical route, a lot of them don't know what's going on. The DGs have more say and control because those are there where the minister come and go unless they move on. Yeah. They still run the place.
So that's why I couldn't climb the ladder in government.
Exactly.
I had to leave.
Yeah. Just before I forget this, so I just so that people know because it's pretty important. So at the moment, there's a rollout taking place for teachers being taught for children from 0 to 9. So all the preschool and primary school children. That it's called the ECE toolkit, but it's a fancy name. Basically, this is what it is, and I'm going to quote from the handbook now, more or less. I'm paraphrasing. So the teachers are being told now, our children in school will be told, listen, Tabo or Mohammed or John, what would you like to be called? Him or they or them? Because you may think you're a boy and your parents told you a boy. I'm not kidding here. But they are teaching you old concepts which are incorrect.
Correct.
They're outdated concepts. I kid you not, this is in the handbook. So if you feel you're a girl, it's fine. You can come dressed as a girl. You can be a girl. And it's just your genitalia, and we will call you them or them. And if you want to go to the girls' toilet, little 9-year-old Tabo or Mohammed, the school must provide for you to go to the girls' toilet. This is in the handbook which teachers are being trained right now for rollout.
But this has been pushed by the ANC government.
So this has come from a 40 million grant from VVOB, a Belgian NGO.
Oh,
VVOB.
Yeah,
I must check this out.
You can please Google it. They gave a 40 million grant to Stellenbosch University to come up with this curriculum, and they are pushing the rollout right now. The training is taking place at the moment.
So government has approved it.
Hey?
Government has approved it.
Yes, and if you ask the president, he's like, who? And the Minister of Basic Education is like, what
are you talking about?
But then why would we be shocked about stuff coming at us out when, and I can't remember if South Africa did anything, as in the population, in 2006, November, we legalized same-sex marriages. We basically set up the foundation for potentially what's happening today. But I can't remember that far back. I don't know whether the communities around Christian, Muslim, whatever,
Had rallied against it.
that rallied against it, because South Africa was actually, I remember I was in Cape Town then, because South Africa was the first African country on the continent to legalize marriages, and they had either 300 or 3,000 marriages on Robben Island on that day.
I remember.
I remember
like
that.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
How, what the sun moon used to do in Hong Kong and
Yeah.
Reverend Moon. Yeah. So, to the best of my recollection, I don't think people rallied against it.
Yeah.
I think you must remember Judge Eminent Edward Cameron is himself.
Of that community.
Okay, and that in itself. And I think it was that our constitution makes provision for everybody.
Yeah.
And live and let live, right? You allowed to practice your religion and live and let live. The problem with the transgender stuff that's been pushed at the moment, two things. One is, so a group went to see the Department of Basic Education, made up of Christians, Muslims, school pupils, whatever, whole delegation representing about 20 million people. Basically, the Department of Basic Education, DBA, told them to fog off, right? Why are we doing this? To prevent gender-based violence. How gender-based violence in adults and everywhere else is being prevented by teaching 5-year-olds that what their parents have told them all these years is outdated and wrong.
Jeez.
And they can choose to be whatever they be at 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9. We're not talking about matriculants
Teenagers,
who have, we're talking about formative brain stages.
But did they give you guys scientific evidence
There's
that
none-
backs up
none
the
of-
statement?
No, it's because it's to. There's an
Agenda.
This is an agenda that is being pushed by the likes of those foundations, the Soroses and all of the
Yeah.
world, and the Gates Foundation that pump money into this. So they basically have said, no, this is it. And you're changing the syllabus. You're teaching young kids. Okay, so that's the other one. So the coalition said, okay, why don't you make provision for the religious groupings to have an equal education, or some say in this syllabus and education, and the answer was, no, we separate church and state. We do not want the religious bodies getting involved in this. However, here's the rub: the transgender, the way it's being taught, is being taught like an ideology.
Yeah.
It is an ideology.
It is an
so
ideology.
you're saying we don't want the religious ideology of the Abrahamic faiths and everybody, Hindus and everybody else, but we're quite happy to take this new invention, this new ideology, and literally shove it down, force it down against the religious and cultural values of the parents, the children, some of the teachers themselves. So we'll force this ideology down, but we're separating church and state.
But they could say that they have to have an ideology that we are accustomed to. For example, at university where I studied science too, evolution was purely the way forward. That was what you taught, and you can't question that, right? So that was what was chosen. So they're saying we're choosing.
But at what age
the one
level
that-
were you taught this?
Okay, yeah, you're at university level.
You're not at a 5-year-old who've been told what your parents have told you all of your life.
Absolutely.
It's nonsense.
Do we have an idea of how big the trans community is in South Africa?
Probably a minority. Like I highly doubt it's a majority.
Like less than
Oh, no.
1%?
Yeah, more, I would imagine. If we're 60 million people, 1% would be 600,000?
Less than that.
So
But
much
see,
less
that may
than
be the community. But the question is, what is the support? You see, so even globally, you can look at it. It's probably
But it's
isn't.
become such a woke thing.
There's a lot of people that are in support of it. They may not agree. I'm not gay or I'm not lesbian, but I support them
But
to
they've
be
been,
who they
they've
want to
been
be.
sold as live and let live,
Yeah.
right? And look, all of these years, I don't think you've had an issue. We've had our issues of faith, just like many of the Christian communities or denominations don't accept. The Pope themselves are having all of these debates whether to ordain women
Yeah.
and then to allow same-sex marriages, and right. So they're even having it in the Anglican and the Christian church. A lot of people disagree with Bishop Tutu.
Yeah.
A lot of his fellow parishioners and fellow archbishops, etc., disagreed with his position that it is acceptable.
Yeah.
Right? So the Christian doctrine is having its own debates. In Islam, more or less 99.9% of the scholars say not acceptable. There is
One mosque in Cape Town.
one mosque in Cape Town and perhaps
It's local.
communities that say no,
Yeah.
that it's permissible. But it is a minority,
Yeah.
not backed up by traditional scholarship. Right? So we more or less accepted that it's not acceptable because it's 99.5%. So, but the policy has been live and let live. We're in a constitutional democracy, a secular state. We're allowed to practice religion. Gladly, you believe that as long as we're not forcing you and you're not forcing us. And
Yeah.
I think that's good. We saw it with the Azan case, with the nose ring case, etc. Over the years, the court stood up for the practice of religious practice. And this is why this headscarf thing is going to be dead in the water if we go to, to the court. And that's what we said to them. You are wasting taxpayers' money. You force us to go to court here. But
Sorry, just to go back to the schools.
yeah.
Will this be pushed into private schools as well?
Well, there's a no, because the act that governs private schools allows you much more latitude in what you're allowed to be taught or not. But government schools have no option. The school governing bodies weren't consulted, parents weren't consulted. This has been railroaded through the department, and I'm just sure there's a lot of money.
You're looking at that. I'm looking at this, right? That same VVOB South Africa alone. 5 provinces, 470 government officials under their books, 58,000 teachers have been now educated, and 5.5 million euros has been awarded to this organization here in South Africa.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. So that's probably what we know. There's probably a lot more.
That's on the website.
So this is the sort of thing where now you needed people in. I mean, this discussion started off for do we need religious parties or parties, taking care of minority rights. This is where you now needed to have a strong say of parliamentarians in parliament who will stop or will raise objections, bring up rational. I mean, one Mansour took up the Palestine issue as a one-man show in parliament, and he got so much done. So to go back sort of a long-winded way, I think there is a place for religious parties. I think we shouldn't write off the small parties for that reason, that one, you're giving your vote to a party that can potentially raise issues on your behalf, specific religious and cultural issues, but secondly, use their position to leverage greater positions that you would ordinarily get voting directly.
And hold them accountable. If you voted for them, hold them accountable.
Yeah, I don't think it has to be an all-in.
Yeah.
But that it needs strong leadership. It needs political wisdom.
Yeah.
So I do think there's a place for now, the way the world has changed, for religious parties.
The Moonshot Pact is mainly funded by a guy, I forgot his name.
Well, there's Hershov and the guy in Australia.
Merkel.
There's a guy from Durban as well, Moshe something.
Okay,
and so on the Jewish.
So there's Moshal, who's South African but based in Australia. He owns
it's the same guy.
all the betting, the Betway, sort of all those online gambling, and Hershov, Rob, who owns the Pedal Africa
Pedal,
and
yeah.
a whole lot of.
So my question to you is, why don't we have Muslim equivalent
Of what?
of those two? Where
Big
funders,
big funders.
advocacy,
lobby.
Yeah.
Because if you take out the whole Zionist thing, it's quite pretty amazing, in my opinion, what they're doing. It's more control, power, stuff like that.
So they're not serving themselves, but they are having that able to control.
But they're also serving a wider community that believes that has more or less the same belief system as them.
Yeah.
You have to look, notwithstanding the barbaric nature of what's going on, and there's no other real way to describe it, you have to give credit to the Zionists.
Yeah.
From the early turn of the 19th century. They had a vision, cockeyed as it is, right? And they have spared no effort, political lobbying, putting people in the right place, and pursuing this relentlessly. If it meant the Nakba, if it meant massacres for the past 75 years.
Loss of their own people.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, you may say, perhaps the Zionists were tools for the other groupings, whether it's the Templars, whether it's the Masons or whatever, the Freemasons, that they needed a disruptive force in the Middle East. There was just too much oil there to let the Arabs organize themselves. You cannot have another caliphate coming out of the money that the oil could have really funded another caliphate. And so they served each other's purpose. Zion needed a horse. These guys needed a jockey too.
Yeah.
But that single-minded purpose, and same with Hershov now. They make no. You know what's amazing about the Zionist Federation, the Jewish Board of Deputies? One is the gall, right, for Rabbi Goldstein to take little letters from South Africa and go to Israel and give it to the soldiers and to unashamedly, unabrasively, not on now, with every massacre that has occurred. I remember listening to him on SAFM when 2014 occurred. And Israel was dropping pamphlets from the sky telling people to leave.
And warning them.
10 seconds before
What a caring army.
Yeah, Richard Goldstone, constitutional court judge, goes there and writes a fax on depleted, on white phosphorus being used, right? And gets blackballed. A man of that stature gets blackballed not to attend his own grandson's bar mitzvah. You know, the pew, made sure that he doesn't get into the shul, and if he is, he's in the last pew and not in the first pew, and all of that. And I mean, he was ostracized, you know, to no end. And if they can do it to a constitutional court judge, what did it say to little, you know, Jewish David who's in matric and sees what he doesn't like and wants to speak out? Or Sarah at university? That it sends a strong message of being blackballed. So coming back to your question, single-minded purpose, victim mentality, right? That it's like us, how we will organize as students during apartheid, and look at us now, our students, no activism, right? And you see, our madrasas don't do politics. In fact, they couldn't be more apolitical if they tried, right? And so
That's across the board?
So
As in,
our South African madrasas,
yeah.
I don't know about the Western Cape, but clearly those under the UXA, all of that are right. So are the vast majority of our masjids, right? No politics. I mean, it's just spirituality and whatever. Jewish kids, on the other hand, from the time they're small, are told that the world hates you.
Yeah.
The world, this victimhood and anti-Semitism rhetoric is drummed into them. And Jewish students have told me this on campus.
Our
right?
last podcast.
I'm sure
Just-
you're saying
yes.
that, right? She probably
She said the
she
same
said
thing.
it.
She grew
Okay,
up like that.
right?
Yeah.
And they've spoken about how it is drummed into them from the time you're 4 years old. You know, right up to you go to shul, you go to the equivalent of madrasa, Sunday, whatever it's called, Friday night, all of this, and it's ingrained into you that Muslims hate you, Arabs hate you, they want to kill Jews, they're all anti-Semitic, they want
Israel
to
is your
destroy
land. Yeah.
Israel is your land, they want to destroy, you know, and we are the chosen people, da. So if you are so single-mindedly, you know, brainwashed, and money, there's no issue about making money any other way. Alcohol, drugs, gambling, interest.
Free for
Make
all.
money however you like. There's no issue about it.
And it's funny,
And-
Jews cannot deal with interest between themselves.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
hard.
you can take from the Goyim. You're doing a service if you wipe out the Gentiles and everybody else,
Yeah.
right? So when you have that kind of money so easily accumulated and without any, you know, moral hazard, then say we are funneling this money towards creating little Israel in the Western Cape for a strategic position and everything else as, you know, another home away from Israel. And you're funding it towards serving your interests. But there's going to be quid pro quo. Make no mistake. If Hershov is putting money into the what's his name, Gayton becomes Premier of the Western Cape, don't think Hershov ain't going to be getting some tenders coming his way too. It works both ways.
Yeah.
Yes, you serve the purpose, but there's going to be a reward for
Payback.
it. Some along the line, there's going to be housing concession, land concession, whatever, development concessions, you can build all the new resorts in the Western Cape, etc. So there's going to be that too. I have no doubt about it. But Muslims are doing that, but in charity. Not in politics, not in strategic thinking, not in think tanks, not in funding political parties,
Not in lobbying.
lobbying, in charity. Why? Because that's what's preached.
Wait, because it's a pillar, I have to do it.
Yes, you have to pay your 2.5% is they have to.
So the question I always ask people, like, if Salah was not farz, for example, would you still pray? So if Zakat was not part of
Would you
your
still
pillar, would you still give it?
You'd probably give it because the rest of your religious teaching tells you that it wards off evil and it protects you and it's buying you heaven.
Yeah.
Which you're not denying,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Right.
We're not denying that.
Yeah. Clearly it's there.
Yeah.
But should you have, in fact, I should send you, we wrote something on Samnet about 1% and 2%.
Yeah.
Cut our charity by 5% and put it into prevention, put it into strategic thinking, planning,
Research.
all of this research. So at the moment, because, people are told repeatedly and in every Muslim radio station, Muslim lectures in the mosque, wherever, that it's charity, charity, charity. All the sawab or the benefits, the rewards in the hereafter, the sawab for boreholes and feeding and taking care of right? I know you guys do charity, so you'll know what I'm talking about.
You're talking,
right?
and I'm listening
But
to you.
that's where the reward is. There's
experience
no
of talking to
reward.
myself.
There's no reward, Shaheen. Listen, Samnet is broke most of the time, more or less, right? My wife, on the other hand, runs Caring Sisters Network, and, right, among her other things, which is what you guys do.
Yeah, humanitarian work, yeah.
Right? Humanitarian work. And with God's grace, she can collect money so easily. Right? My wife will put up now. If she says, I found a site for a borehole, I'm going to check it out tomorrow. I need 350,000 start to finish for this borehole. I kid you not, by tomorrow, she'll have a 350,000. She'll have to say, guys, I had enough. Thank you.
Yeah.
Literally. That's how quickly, because charity is driven. On the other hand, when I say we need bursaries for journalism students, which we run, Samnet runs a journalism bursary, right?
Yeah.
She won't, even if she puts it on the same WhatsApp group, she won't get 5,000 rands.
So do you
But she'll get a 350 in 4 hours, in 10 hours.
So do you think an education needs to be done with the leaders of certain charities, or all the charities, for example, your wife,
Yes.
Appeal Islamic League, need to come together and then educate?
The donors.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it has to come from all the spheres. I think, look, in as much as we like to think we have some say in the community, the honest truth is the theologians, is the people who have the ear of the mosques, who have the real say in our community. Someone who's been doing this for a while, though, would like to think that Samnet makes an impact here and there. But when it comes to religious affairs of the hereafter, and where you should put your money to get your space in the hereafter, they listen to the priests. Yeah. Well, the imams, the theologians, etc. And until it comes from them, I think we are just blowing in the wind.
So that's a great strategy then to start with, is to focus on our theologians. I mean, it's a tough one, but I mean, I know there's many young scholars who are willing to hear. They're asking, when they're listening to our podcast, a lot of them are messaging us and saying, can I come on, can we talk? And some are saying we're afraid to say certain things.
No,
but they seem to be willing. Yeah.
Those who are non-aligned to the larger theological bodies may have the space to speak on, but then they get blackballed.
Yeah.
Right? Those who are aligned, like every organization, Hindu, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, whatever, you toe the party, or political for that matter, you toe the party line. You do not speak out anything in public that's not the party line.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think the problem is a lot of the theologians are not necessarily malintentioned. I just don't think they understand the value of media, the value of social media, the value of lobbying, of all of these things. They just don't, because it's not, it's not taught in the theological schools. Media isn't taught in theological schools.
And I don't think
some of them go there when they stand at 6. From standard 6 into Darul Uloom, you come out 21-year-old mufti.
Yeah.
By the way, for those who don't understand, 6 is grade 8.
Yeah. We're dating. I'm dating myself.
I also stand at 6.
I'm dating myself.
I understood that better than the others. Yeah.
So when they go into these seminaries when they're that young, and it's a confined syllabus about religion, not spirituality, etc., and not about other things. So they don't understand the value, and then a lot of them, of course, see it as sinful, that it's not permissible. It is, it's tools of the devil. And that's the other reason.
And that we're not in a Muslim state, so you can't vote.
And there's one other reason, which is not going to make me very popular, but they don't want to see control and power going away from their hands. Because if suddenly, whether it's Samnet or another organization or another one that's involved in media and marketing and whatever, starts to become popular or grows, it does pose a threat to the influence and reach of the theological bodies.
And the ideology that they promote.
And they may think, yes, we are,
modernists
or whatever. And so there's a whole host of reasons for it.
But, this I was saying, maybe is one of the reasons also, but we don't face, maybe you would know differently, the Islamophobia issues in South Africa than the Western world, right? The outsiders. Do you think Islamophobia is as strong here? I think it unites. I got friends in the UK, and they seem to be like there's a lot, even the US. There seem to be a lot of Muslims involved in politics, and even on the masjid level, they allow Muslim politicians to come talk and give speeches in the Jummah lectures. Here, I've hardly seen that.
So, with that being said, would you say the tragic events that happened in the US or the UK forced them to take a different role? So, in essence,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
something drastic to happen.
Necessity being the mother of getting involved.
Well, you're speaking about this issue with regards to this ECE, whatever
the ECE toolkit, yeah.
toolkit.
But-
Then
but-
Bell,
but-
Bell,
but
I
it
want to talk about
has
this
happened.
Bellable as well. I
But
don't
it
know
has
much.
happened. It has happened, but not. Well, remember Pagad?
Yeah.
Right? They said, this is growing Muslim fundamentalism here in Pagad when they put a bomb in that Hollywood.
Yeah.
Really. And it turned out to be one of the main guys involved was an NIA spy. Right? So there was third force activity involved there.
Oh, wow.
Right? I don't know if people remember this long.
Yeah.
Really
We were young.
dating me
Yeah,
now.
we were young.
Right? One of the guys involved was working for the NIA. He was an infiltrator, right? That kind of pushed them into these things. Then you had Hussein Solomons, Professor Hussein Solomons, who came out in the run-up to the 2010 World Cup, that there are Al-Qaeda camps here, and we are all fundamentalists pushing money.
Yeah.
Now the Zionist narrative that you'll see in the newspapers being pushed out is, yes, we are funding money through NGOs into...
Well, I think UK a week ago gave...
So this is not in isolation. One, it's a distraction. Two, they need to force the government to start clamping down on NGOs, to start forcing the Muslims, whatever. I'm sure they're not thrilled at Hamas. I mean, you think the DA Moonshot. Yeah, another Freudian slip for good reason. That Moonshot little alliance gets into power. You think Hamas is going to be able to come to South Africa? You think they'll be able to open an office in Cape Town?
No. Yeah.
You're going to have NIA, CIA, Mossad literally sitting in their offices. Now, those are the repercussions of voting the wrong way. Other than, Islamophobia, monitoring of Muslims now sitting. If they say, that's a firebrand imam in this masjid, you can be sure there's going to be a little, what's our state security branch, parked van outside with a microphone listening in, or if they're not recording it or whatever else. That is not hyperbole or hyperbole theory.
That's going to happen.
It's happened everywhere else. Why won't it happen here?
Do you feel our Muslims in South Africa united?
No, not at all. Not in the least.
But united on what? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't know.
On issues in
on
the country?
anything.
On anything?
No.
I know, we have issues with belief systems, but
No.
beyond that?
Whatever. Pick religion, pick spirituality. Pick
Even with the younger audiences?
pick any.
The younger guys?
No, not at all.
But here's the thing. I would say that even within the Zionist community, I don't think they're all united on theology, but they're united on a purpose.
That's
what
the
you're
bigger
saying.
uniting factor.
Yeah.
We
I thought
not-
Palestine would become the unity. Even we said this in our first.
because,
when 7 October happened and we spoke about it, we said we thought this was going to be. I asked you that question. Do you think this is going to be the uniting force, even with regards to the Shia community and all of them? And I thought it was going to be, but yet it hasn't been.
I actually met people. We spoke about this in one of the podcasts about a month after the October the 7th, and asked them, "What do you think?" And they were so anti-Palestine. It was actually scary speaking to them. They were
Muslims.
Muslims.
Yeah.
Locals, South Africans.
Yeah.
And they were alive and with a brain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Come from a certain branch of Islam.
Yeah.
They were like, no. This is a creation of Hamas was a creation of Israel and blah blah blah. So
Notwithstanding that.
And the fact they said that the azab on the people of Palestine because
That's a famous. That's a very common one that's been put out. So it's not untrue that Hamas was created to break up what was seen as a secular force in the PLO coalition of all those groups, and they thought let's introduce fundamentalist religion into it and try and break this up. Kind of backfired, like the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, and they gave them all those SAM missile things. Just okay. I want to come back to you though. You said there isn't Islamophobia in South Africa. Now, we have a hate crime register, right? So you do have quite a bit of these incidents. Local Durban Muslim kid been smacked because of his topi. You can't wear a topi. You can't wear this. You can't wear. Those are at the superficial, but they occur.
Right.
Nurses, staff, scarf not allowed, pants not allowed. Friday, no time to go pray. That still happens. However, if you do want to see whether there's Islamophobia or not, some of those YouTube videos or some of the articles in the newspapers, go look in the comments section from South Africans. There's this guy, Falafel Fundi character, who was now sitting in Israel somewhere. Yeah. Look when he's now deliberately taunting, right? He's basically giving the middle finger to the Durban Muslim community. Because no one can touch him. Right? Because go look at the comments below him from what are more or less South Africans. And you will see that among white South Africans, there's still a lot of the old racism, but the Islamophobia. You just have to look at the nature of the comments and the vitriol in them to see that it's there. It's just that although we 30 years into apartheid, for many of us, we're still living in old Indian suburbs, own colored suburbs, own white suburbs, a little bit mixing here and there, maybe in the school and this and that. But we're still living, by and large, 90% of us, separate lives.
In our own silos.
In our own silos, mixing among us our
own selves,
which is not necessarily a bad thing. You go where you're comfortable. But in their avenues, they haven't changed their thinking because they still know no better.
Yeah.
And they still, I'll give you an example. I saw a podcast, my job to so I saw one, and you can see it in Biz News, right? Alec Hobbs, Alec Hogg's podcast. So yesterday or the day before, he had this retired Afrikaner, senior Afrikaner general. And he's talking about the videos that he's seeing about Hamas and you can see this guy's been brainwashed so badly. Just 5 minutes of listening into him, I was like, okay, I'm had enough.
Yeah.
It's like watching Gayton talk about Hamas or Palestine or ACDP. This is a Reverend Moshe or whatever his name, right? The head of ACDP. And you listen to a Christian back genocide and not even, okay, we do support Israel, but this isn't right.
Yeah.
No. It's like 150%.
They are correct.
They're entitled to. Yeah. Hamas is a terrorist organization and wipe out 40,000 women and children. So it just shows you the extent to which the lobbying, the indoctrination, the tours to Israel, all of that have paid off over the years.
There's actually a video on TikTok. Ex-South African, I don't think he's in South Africa anymore. He posted the old South African flag, and he calls it God's flag.
Yeah.
This is the flag of God, and we are God's children.
Yeah.
And
but
we'll come back.
Afrikaner.
Yeah. And it's funny enough because he posted another video of, and I think this could be AI created, I don't know, of an African lady wearing the old South African flag.
She's wearing it.
A dress.
Right.
And he says, look, even Africans support this.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was a photoshopped
AI. I'm not racist. I have black friends. I'm not racist. Same thing. Yeah. So
sorry, but what was so interesting? There were 7,000 comments on this.
Don't tell me they're positive.
80% were for this.
Sure.
Right? And there was a video, a lady who refuted the video. What was amazing about that was she was white. And she says, I don't think what are you doing is completely wrong because this brought you an oppression, genocide, killing, oppression. Yeah. What are you doing? And this guy that posted the video, I think he lives in the U.S. Yeah. He's a farmer in the U.S.
Yeah, ex-South African.
Ex-South African, yeah.
But there's a lot. Those who have emigrated. And look, here after Penny Sparrow and all of this, people are a bit more careful about what you say in public. But I imagine in private circles, there's still Islamophobia, racism probably rife. And those who've emigrated can now do what Falafel Fundi is doing and what this guy's posting out there. The expats in Australia, in the UK, you see this. And you see it in some of these comments on these videos. Even in those Biz News podcasts, when you look in the comments below, you'll see that veneer, just that veneer of class and sophistication just below it is just that raw racism and Islamophobia waiting to come out.
So, you mentioned that the Western Cape is going to become little Israel. My question is, what value does South Africa play in the international waters, like outside of us? Why would they want control of this land? What purpose does it serve? I understand some African countries will have resources, the Arab countries have the oils. What does South Africa have that they want?
Okay, so I said, yes, I think they'd like to turn it into little Israel.
Yeah.
For a start, we don't have any U.S. bases here officially or that we know about, right? And we decommissioned our nuclear weapons when the transition took place. However, if you look at the broader geopolitical landscape, China, Russia, the one world order, the United States. Yeah. Russia needs naval bases. That's what they needed Syria for. They needed the one in Ukraine, I forget the name, Crimea, right? Yeah. There aren't too many other places in the world that the US has allowed them to have places where you can refuel, repair, get fresh air, food, etc. for your submarines.
Or shoot from.
Or shoot from.
Yeah.
Then there's the growing threat of China, right? And yes, militarily it's still far behind, but it'll get there. It's got the numbers, but it don't have the
But it's got
weaponry.
presence.
Right.
It's got presence.
Right? And it's got its own colonial
style.
of how it's invading countries, and that is by economically, right? That's sort of economic imperialism. South Africa's, what you've seen happen with the Houthis, right, has shut off that area potentially.
Yeah.
Right? And imagine if the Houthis were stronger and not the poorest country in the world, Yemen, etc. How strategic. And who's saying that Ethiopia or Eritrea, or Somalia, or all those kidnapping and hijacking of ships, etc., have shown that those straits are vulnerable. And it's being proven now by little Houthis against the might of the United States and NATO, etc. In this global geopolitical war, Simon's Town, the Western Cape, for an alternative route is highly, highly, highly strategic. Both the mass of land, also the amount of ocean. I mean, right up from Plettenberg Bay, where does the Eastern Cape start? To Quebec, round about PE, right all the way
Port
up
Edward,
all the way down to Namibia, right? Huge coastline, lots of land available, lots of potential places to build naval bases and strategic weapon storage, etc. So in all respects, in the broader global war and positioning against Russia, against China, creating a little home for Israel away from Israel, it makes sense to have the Western Cape secede from South Africa, turn it into 53rd state of the United States, or combine with the second Israeli state or the third one, because it'll make political, economic, and an economic sense in the sense of they away from the political volatility of KwaZulu-Natal.
Yeah.
Gauteng, yes, it was a mining town. We've seen that now dissipate, load shedding, all of this. Whereas the Western Cape has a decent economy all on its own. The infrastructure is pretty good. It's got a diverse community, Malays, Capes, black people, and clearly tons of foreigners controlling the wine farms, all
massive
of that.
Tourism potential.
Tourism. So it could do pretty well as a country all on its own, even with its own natural resources.
I can't believe you're actually having that conversation. You know?
Right, yeah. So, and this is what they're pushing for.
The
I
Cape
don't believe
independence.
it's just this guy who's an expat, an immigrant to South Africa, just on the surface of it, I want to protect my children.
Yeah.
I don't believe that nonsense this is a global, part of this global war preparing for Russia and China that's going on here. It's too strategic a position geographically and otherwise not let that control of it from the United States, from Israel, etc.
With that being said, do you think the countries that form BRICS would allow that to happen?
Well,
especially
they have
Russia,
they have
China.
no say. It's the South African voting public. It's the South African government that needs to make sure that never happens. I think this Cape Independence Party is pushing for a referendum because the law allows that. But then why haven't they formed a political party and stood for elections? Because I think they'd get a hiding there. But if they use this agenda and let the DA be the front of it, so they're pushing, no, we just want to have a referendum.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the DA with its Moonshot Pact pushes this agenda. You're winning on both sides.
Apparently, they couldn't get more than 2,000 signatures.
That's for a political party.
Yeah.
But the same funders, the same people are behind it. So when you're voting for any of the Moonshot Pact, you're voting for future Cape secession. It won't happen overnight. It's a 20-year project, but that's how every plan starts.
But these funders are spreading their monies across. Has the ANC not taken from them as well? At some point?
The ANC started getting less. The ICJ case, the pro-Palestinian movement, clearly has not enamored them to those funders in particular, who have said they need to now. I mean, it's not like Rabbi Goldstein hasn't openly said it. Yeah. That they will break the ANC for doing this. They're going to punish the ANC for doing this, and this is one of the ways.
I mean, it was a ballsy move, no doubt, that South Africa does that. But I mean, I'm thinking, from a political point of view, from a realizing I'm going to lose all my votes here in South Africa, what?
Yeah,
they really thought...
people, this nonsense about Iran having funded them, and secondly, they were pushing the Muslim vote.
Yeah.
What Muslim
vote? I was saying, we what percentage are we? 3%? 5%?
No, 2%. Even of that 2%...
Oh my God.
The history of Muslim voters and Muslim turnout and registered voters has been very
It's
poor.
minimal, exactly.
Yeah. So...
What?
50,000 votes, 100,000, 200,000 votes.
You can't justify that move. Yeah.
For all of the other problems. If you look at what the ANC stood to lose in doing what they've done,
Yeah.
And compared to what any potential benefit of a Muslim voter is a non-argument. It's not even 100 to 1. It's 1,000,000 to 1 that they could sort of funding. All a Goa can come into, part of negotiation. You see now in the US, they want to pass legislation to punish South Africa in different forms, impose sanctions.
Yeah.
Right? You have little Tony Leon running, Leon Jr. running to report us to the United States. There's so many ways of punishing South Africa.
They're really looking at the relationship with South Africa, they said.
That it must make you ask, is it beyond us to think that it could have just been on principle, that it could have been a 50-year, 60-year history or 80-year history with the PLO, with the Palestinian people that pushed this? Because clearly it just wasn't the Muslim vote.
Absolutely.
It wasn't.
Do you think South Africa went to the ICJ on their own, or they spoke to certain of their partners?
Oh, no, that's politics.
Yeah.
You have to. You mean, or politics, you mean other countries?
Yeah.
Or
Other countries.
Oh, yes, that would be politics. You
That's
have to do it.
They would have had to.
Behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And said go.
All of it. They would have definitely bounced it off Russia and China.
So would you...
maybe India, but
India.
I doubt.
I thought India is pro-Israel.
No, I didn't say India would agree with it.
Oh, okay.
But as a remember, they're trying to build now. I mean, listen, the BRICS currency is decades away, right? For a whole lot of reasons.
Yeah.
But as a block of the global South, to consolidate, maybe not to form a currency, but to start trading in their own currencies, rubles for rand, oil for something else.
Yeah.
That takes
To
the
boost
dollar
it up.
out, and that is bad news for the dollar. So, as we've seen, India and Russia now trading oil in rupees and rubles.
Yeah.
Right. So, they're not even going to allow one thing to happen because it can grow. So, coming back to what you asked, yes, they would have spoken about it. But I think if it was a principal thing and they were firm about it, they would have said, we're doing it. We're kind of informing you out of courtesy and we're letting you know what direction it's going to go. But do they need their permission? No.
No. Yeah.
Look, it is a hell of a bold move. It is a hell of a principled, bold initiative to think that little South Africa, even little ANC and Naledi Pandor could take on. Remember, it wasn't Israel that we were taking on here.
Yeah.
It was the might of the G7.
Absolutely.
That's what South Africa took on. Political risk, economic risk, travel bans. I mean, there's no end to how the punishment could come. The run on the rand.
And you say South Africa did or the ANC?
Hedge funds. No.
I read something today.
The
where
ANC did.
Yeah.
They're expecting the rand by this year to go to 21.47 or 21.57 to the dollar.
Purposely.
Depends what the election looks like too. Look, I think 15 and 16 are gone. 17 would be a strong rand, and 22 will soon. If it breaks 20 and stays at 20, and elections are disruptive, and the government, the Rothschilds of the world decide they need to punish South Africa for the ICJ, then they can run it very
Need to
quickly.
buy some dollars quickly now.
Yeah.
Buy gold. Gold.
Buy gold.
Gold.
Buy gold. Yeah, buy gold.
Not dollars, buy gold. That's the real currency.
Yeah, God's money.
Yeah, of course.
That's God's money.
That's why you pay a tax on it.
Yeah, that's why it's good. That's God's money. Crypto. You're not saying anything but crypto. No.
Yeah.
No,
That's a better story.
Bitcoin. Yeah. But yeah, that's God's money.
Anyway, I think we spoke enough about South African politics. Let's go into the Middle East. The one question I have now for a lot of people that are quite passionate about the Middle East, do you think if Hamas knew or knows, if they knew this would happen,
The consequence
the consequences of devastation,
of the 7th October.
7th October, yeah. It's basically hell on earth. Do you think they would have done what they did?
I think no one could have, in their wildest scenario planning, predicted that the world would allow the scale of massacre that has happened and still is happening. I think Hamas would have known that's why they took those hostages, that there's going to be a retaliation. However, Hamas would have expected what happened in the past, right? Bombing of Hamas sites, not hospitals, not playgrounds, not kindergartens, not refugee camps, schools, etc. And the leverage would have been the
Hostages.
hostages. I think the Hamas probably looked at the world and forgotten about them completely, and needed this to remind the world that we are suffering, that we are in this open air prison, that this is what's happening to Al-Aqsa, this is what's happening in Ramallah and the West Bank. And maybe they thought it would ignite an Arab Spring among the youth. Clearly not among the governments. That I think they knew all along. The governments aren't going to do anything. If anything, they'll remain non-aligned. I don't think Hamas expected that they not only wouldn't remain non-aligned, that they would literally take the side of Israel.
And I think specifically also at that time with the normalization that was occurring en masse.
Yes,
in the Arab world.
and I think this was one of the strategies that we need to draw attention to our suffering, to remind people. And yes, Israel is going to bomb, but we're holding hostages. We'll negotiate, and yes, I expect they knew the casualties would come and the rockets would come, but not on. I don't know if 50 years from now people say, we didn't see those death camps in Auschwitz or wherever. Yeah. We didn't see the Houthis in Rwanda, the Rwandan genocide.
Hutus.
Right? Yeah, Houthis. Kill each other but here we're seeing it live.
Yeah.
We're seeing the massacres live.
Yeah. Our grandchildren ask us, where were you when that happened?
And those Arabs around the Middle East, and more importantly, the Sunaks and Bidens and everybody else, just not only keeping quiet, sending more arms. It's incomprehensible, really, for us too, that we're probably doing far too little. Nazir, like you rightfully said, our grandfathers, what did you do? When it was happening in front live on TV, 40,000 people just massacred, bombed in their sleep, bombed in their shelter, bombed in hospitals.
So why do you think the Arab world and then the wider Muslim world didn't do much about it?
Or didn't do and aren't
yeah.
not.
doing.
I mean, the most that the Muslims are doing is
Because they...
and complacent in it.
Charity.
Yeah. But complacent in it. That's not just being silent.
Yeah.
But complacent in it.
Yeah.
And what
Absolutely.
makes...
Especially the ones in the borders.
Yeah, no, they're complicit, absolutely.
And then what makes, I'm not going to say all Shias, I'm going to say part of the Shia world different to the Sunni world. Because if I say all Shias, I'm going to be lying, because Kazakhstan, if I'm not mistaken, which is a majority Shia country, supplies oil or gas to Israel.
Yeah, it's about business.
Yeah.
So
What makes Iran so different?
Let's Iran,
Yeah.
because it is also, to some extent, seeing itself as a victim of maybe a Shia conspiracy, that they don't like us and we have to. But I mean, look, South Africa during the sanctions developed a ROIFAC, developed nuclear weapons, huge infrastructure, self-reliant, bypassed the sanctions illegally, but became a force on its own.
Yes.
Israel, similar.
Yes.
Victim mentality drives you, right? Apartheid drew UDM, the whole anti-apartheid movement, forgot about everything else, what we spoke right at the beginning. Would this have united Muslims? Iran, clearly there are lots of Sunnis who still see Shia as non-Muslims, as a threat to Islam. And there's lots of Muslims who are neutral, but lots and lots of Muslims who still see it as an abomination.
You know what's funny about that? Sorry. We were in the West Bank.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
2000.
In Bethlehem,
What year was that?
2019.
No. Before COVID, yes.
Yeah, 2019.
2019. And we went to one of the refugee camps. And what stood out for us were three things. One, all the so-called martyrs that passed away, his faces are spray painted on the wall. Two, the support for Hezbollah. Hassan Nasrallah's face is all over. Quite shocking.
Like stenciled images.
Yeah. Third one, Ayatollah Khamenei's face is all over, as in they praising him. You didn't see no...
Sunni Arab leaders.
Nothing. There was actually, when you speak to him, there was actually a lot of...
I think there's one of PLO, maybe. That's it.
Yeah, there was a lot of, I don't know, maybe hatred, as a harsh word, for certain Arab leaders. And when you speak to them, they'll have to tell you, well, it was because of this leader. This is why we're in
sold
this
us out.
position that sold us out. So they don't really blame Israel first. They blame the Arab leaders first and then Israel for the situation.
Because Israel is your enemy. They're supposed to be not only your friends, but your fellow Muslims.
Yeah.
So coming back to your answer, to your question, why? Firstly, the sanctions over all these years, the Western using Saddam to attack Iran for all those 8 years of that horrific war, one made Iran self-sufficient, forced it to do everything on its own because of the sanctions, like South Africa and Israel developed their own capabilities. But thirdly, also the need to prepare oneself against a possible Sunni attack one day, because you're seeing yourself as a victim, that there are still Sunnis who want to don't accept your religion, whether wipe Iran off or whatever, and that drives you. Necessity, as we said earlier, the mother of invention, or a mother of ingenuity or whatever else, and so Iran has developed the capability. It's free of the West. It is independent of the West. Free and fair elections debatable in Iran, but it's still a very theocratic state, right? Maybe one would say the mullahs are almost dictators in some respect, whether those are separate issues. The Arabs are all unelected monarchies who know that their populations don't accept them. So they need the United States to stay in power, the military bases, everything else. And the United States in return gets unwavering support in return for that.
Sorry, you know what's funny about
That's
this?
a valid point, man.
You know what's funny about this? The only democratic country or city is Gaza.
Because it had free and fair
It had
elections.
free and fair elections.
Well, what about the West Bank and the PLO? No.
No, the elections were there.
Sure.
Yeah.
I
That's
remember
interesting.
No, they were 100%.
Yeah, well, Jordan
In
was
fact,
given-
They as much as they wanted to negate it, they had to admit that those elections were free and fair.
Yeah.
What people forget is that Hamas is not just a political wing. It is grassroots. Its members are the ones who do everything on the ground for people. It's as if saying,
It's a government. Yeah.
Before it became a government, when it was still just a political movement, it wasn't just an armed political movement. It was the people in Hamas who were the ones doing absolutely everything, from healthcare to social services. People forget that this was Israel. Was it 92 when they forced people into Hamas, right?
Yeah.
I think 92. 82, sorry.
16, yeah.
Yeah, so they just left them there with nothing. Nothing. No money, no support, surrounded, blockaded, imprisoned. It's Hamas that did everything. And therefore, Israel is saying, no, people are forced to support Hamas, and there's nonsense. People freely chose them in a free and fair elections. It's just that the Western governments couldn't afford to recognize it. It would be political suicide for Israel if the West recognized Hamas. And therefore, you have to maintain the terrorist image, and therefore it's okay to wipe them out because they're terrorists. So all of these unelected leaders are virtually only there by the grace of the West, United States and UK, and of course France and one or two of those other old colonial powers.
Allies.
And therefore they jump to the tune. You can look at Turkey. You would have thought 60 million strong, one of the largest armies in Europe, Asia, and Europe, right? Very strong in terms of numbers. Long history. I mean, the army ruled Turkey like Egypt for decades, right? You'd expect you'd have seen much more come out of Turkey, and yet Erdogan has been not only silent, but it appears been trading with Israel all of this time. And you have to ask, why would the Muslim party do this? Clearly, there's some leverage somewhere, whether it's his son, whether it was that coup, the apparent coup, the Gulenist coup, all of this. And the quid pro quo here, that there's some leverage. I mean, Khashoggi, he was a U.S. citizen decapitated on MBS's orders. The U.S. could extradite MBS to face trial in the U.S. for this. Why hasn't it happened? In return, MBS is not only asking, I'll jump, but how high would you like me to jump and how long should I stay in the air? Because literally he could be indicted to the United States to face trial and end up in Gitmo or somewhere. And in return, Look, not just in terms of Gaza. Look at the change in Saudi Arabia, or there's rave concerts and all of this coming in the last 5 years or so. In the middle of Ramadan, to have rave concerts in Jeddah, 90 kilos away from the Kaaba. So that didn't come to suppress and be able to lock up all of those imams and his. I mean, he put all his relatives in that hotel for what was it, a month or two?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Lock them up. You
Took
think
all
you
their
can,
money. Yeah.
You think you can just do that if you don't have America's support? You can't do that. You can't do that without the UK and America aiding and abetting you.
And yet the people of these countries, like if you look at Jordan and so on, are in way support of Palestine.
Yes.
So they can just see how government and the people are just completely separated.
Yeah, and it's the repression of the armies and everything else that's with the backing of the United States, the UK, that they can they suppress their own people. It's a story of the South America. It's a story of Africa.
Yeah. Do you think Iran is going to retaliate?
They already did.
I think
And then Israel.
Iran knows that the US is itching to wipe it off the map. It just needs a pretext. Whether, okay, look, November is far away, but nothing helps an incumbent president like a war. Nothing. You know, Biden could be dementia tomorrow. He almost is. Right?
But they say he is.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? A war. Oh, he's re-elected like this. Margaret Thatcher
Savior.
took on little Falklands, just wiped out Falkland, the Argentinians to get re-elected, and like that. Similarly,
Obama
Trump,
with- yeah.
right? Obama with Afghanistan, Yemen, Libya. Who didn't Obama bomb?
Do you think Israel will go into a full-scale war with Hezbollah?
No, because I don't think they can afford fighting on 4 fronts or 3 fronts at the same time.
I
I
agree.
think it's too much for them. Hezbollah are also organized. They're not in in camp. They still can get supply of Hamas. Of course, is closer. There's no whatever was there is there. They haven't been able to replenish what they've had. So and then it's starvation now. All of this. So no, Hezbollah is not fighting Hamas.
That's a funny point to just think about it.
Not Hamas. Hezbollah not fighting Israel.
Israel.
No,
Yeah, that's right. But that's a funny point. I'm just trying to think. Not one video has come from the IDF in Gaza finding a massive amount of guns and missiles.
Ammunition, yeah.
Wait, wow.
No.
What way is it?
They found a little book. They say was in a calendar, and they,
Sure.
No, I agreed.
Masters.
Yeah, and this has been guerrilla warfare at its best. You know, isolated, know your orders, no radio contact. You can't have radio contact.
Yeah.
Just everyone knows you've been given this number of rockets.
Do your job.
You see a tank, you see soldiers, hit and run. That. I mean, it's just been amazing, but not the front with Hezbollah, because they don't want to stir the Lebanese up again. They've just managed to keep it under control after all the Hariris and all of this, and so they don't want to be seen as the aggressor. I don't think they can open that front, or they'll want to open that front. This has taken Israel will not show it, but it's taken a toll on the numbers. It's taken a toll on the resources and on the finances. So clearly nothing compared to massacring 40,000 people. But so you ask yourself, what leverage have they on Erdogan? What leverage have they got on Saudi Arabia? The others we know. The Jordan, all of those have always just been under their control.
They were given that land in case.
So
This is gonna have to be your last one, bro. It's a long night already.
So
We'll get Doc back in for
yeah,
sure.
we will.
definitely. Do you have hope for Gaza?
Well, as Muslims, we must. And we need not just the money that has been donated so far for relief, but we need, when this is over, to organize teachers. I mean, we're already busy with the doctors. Absolutely everybody to go and vote, because we got to remember what's left there now. They've bombed it into the Stone Age. They made it uninhabitable. And I'm sure, given these people, whatever water supplies that I'm sure they are poisoning that too. They want to make it that they have, even not only Hamas is destroyed, Palestinians have nowhere to live. That is what I mean. They bombed the sperm banks. They bombed the university registrars, so that now Palestinians' degrees have all been wiped out. Someone wants to go to Europe and say, right, I want to start. I got no proof that you studied. And if someone in Brussels or Canada wants to say, sorry, the rule is I need to see proof. Okay, I understand you were bombed. Too bad.
Can't help you.
Can't help you. So this is not just about destroying Hamas, as they want to tell us. This is about wiping out Palestinians. So it's therefore incumbent on us, on all of us, when the bombing stops, and God hopes the Egyptians open those borders properly, that we need to go and serve time. Money is one thing. We'll all have to go serve time. Whatever our capacity, engineers, maybe not accountants.
Like the South Africans who serve in IDF, we will be serving in
yes, we'll have to. We absolutely have to. We have hope. As Muslims, we live, as you say, one in the mercy and the fear of God, but at the same time more in His hope. So we must.
Doc, it's been a pleasure.
No, thank you for
We're gonna
having
have
me.
to.
We delayed it for a while.
Yeah,
but
time is obviously going, and we wanted people to really feel for something for the next one. So from us in Mindscape Podcast, thank you so much for watching. Assalamu alaikum.